Hey planner friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Rachel from Rachel on Paper, and today I'm going to be talking about my 2024 planner setups. In my last video, I gave a brief overview of all of the planners and journals I'm intending to go into 2024 with. And today I'm going to start what's going to be a 3-part series where I walk through how I've set up each of the planners that I'm intending to use in 2024. So I have some other journals that are also in the mix, but these are really the 3 that I consider my primary planners and journals. So this here is the 2024 Hobonichi Weeks. This is the mega version. This is my personal planner. This is intended to be much more functional. This is my everyday carry. This is where stuff gets done. The B6 Common Planner, this is the half-year version. This is my journal and where I do memory keeping, where I'm documenting life in the Hobonichi sense of the term. And I do use this for some planning. I use the weeklies to time block, and I occasionally will put my daily to-do list in here. But this is much more journaling and recording life and documenting life. But I'm including it here because I do some planning in here, and I really think of these two as my personal planner together. For a long time, I've liked journaling in my personal planner, and I've realized that I can't do both in one book and have enough pages, essentially. I don't like using undated books. I used to bullet journal, but I got really burnt out from drawing spreads. I like using dated books. And so instead, I use these 2 books, and this one I use mostly for planning, but I will journal in here occasionally because this is the notebook that is with me almost always. And this one I would say is mostly journaling and documenting life, but there is some planning too. This is also the notebook where I would do the most sort of creative journaling and planning. I use most of my stickers and washi tape here, fountain pens. Like, this is the book if I want to sit down and have fun and play with stationery that I will pick up. And this is the book that's intended to be functional. And then the last planner in my 2024 lineup is this Hobonichi A5 Day Free. This is my work planner. I also use a lot of digital tools for work like Notion and OneNote and Outlook. And so I am planning to film essentially 3 setup videos, 1 for each book. I've realized it's easier to do these in chunks. And I'm gonna start with the Hobonichi Weeks today. I will follow that up with the B6 Common Planner. And then the work planner setup video is going to be a little bit different because I'm trying to also bring in the digital tools that I use to plan for work. And so I'm definitely planning to give an overview of my work planner and the other digital tools I also use for work. So with that brief introduction aside, let's jump into talking about how I've set up this 2024 Hobonichi Weeks to use next year. Okay, so I'm really excited about using the Hobonichi Weeks again this year. I've used the Hobonichi Weeks Mega for several years now, and while I have moved out of it occasionally for a couple of months this past year, I was really trying to experiment with getting everything into one book again, and I was using the full year Sterling and Common Planner as one book for a few months, trying to combine all my planner and journal. And while that was fun, I definitely realized I prefer 2 books, and I wouldn't have enough pages in the Common Planner to use it in the same way. I have been using it in 2023 and 2024 if I start the year with it. And so I picked up the Hobonichi Weeks, and again, this is intended to be my personal planner. This is functional first and foremost, and this is my everyday carry. So let's get started. Just in terms of details, again, this is the Hobonichi Weeks Mega. This is the Sneaker Weeks edition, and I believe this is called the raspberry color. I really like the Sneaker Weeks because you get all of the extra pages with the Mega. and I believe that's 220 pages, or no, 217. But it's a slimmer profile, and I find that it fits better in a broader variety of Hobonichi Weeks covers that I own, at least. So I really like the Sneaker Weeks for that reason, and I have found over the last few years that the Sneaker Weeks is super durable. Like, the cover holds up really well over the year, and it archives well. So I really like the Sneaker Weeks if you're ever thinking about checking it out. So I'll try to mention where various stickers or, different things you see in here are from, but if there are any questions you have, please leave them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to try to answer them. But again, this is meant to be functional, and so my setup is pretty minimal. So on this cover page, I just have a picture of my son that I have here with the clear pocket that comes with the Hobonichi Weeks. This is a vinyl from Virgo and Paper and some washi tape from Paper Bits Co. You'll see a lot of Paper Bits Co. and Virgo and Paper in here. I think those are the two shops that I use the most in this setup. I'll try to mention others as I come across them. And so here, just a really minimal setup page with more stickers from Paper Bits Co. And then getting into the first layout, I picked up this kit from Virgo and Paper largely because I really like these large box stickers to cover the layouts that are here. I believe under here you have like important dates for 2024, and then under here is the calendar from the previous year, and I don't use either of those, and so I always like picking up these sticker kits for that reason. But on this layout, I am intending to use one of these zig dot markers I'll probably use a couple of these actually, to mark off my pay dates, my husband's pay dates, and my work holidays. And then here I'm planning to use this to write down my word of the year. I still haven't picked my word of the year, so I'm sure I'll come back to this at some point later this month. And then here I thought it would be fun to start with some planner intentions. I've really gotten into the habit of starting a new planner with writing down my intentions for that planner over the last few years. And I really like that for two reasons. One, it helps me just break in the planner. I feel like I have, perfectionist tendencies, and breaking in the planner right away and, making some mistakes really helps me get over those perfectionist tendencies and makes the process of setting it up a lot smoother for myself. And then two, I find it really fun to look back on and think about, how my intentions for the planner have evolved over the year. So that's my setup right here. This next layout is one that I think a lot of people use for a similar purpose, but I'm intending to use it to track my workouts, and if I close the rings on my Apple Watch. I've used this layout for that purpose for a couple of years now, and I really like it because I like seeing sort of, patterns over the entire year. And so my plan is to write down the workouts I did here, and again, use one of these zig dot markers to mark off the days I closed the rings on my Apple Watch. And then I'm thinking up here that I might summarize my workouts over the month up here. So how many days did I work out? How many days did I close the rings on my Apple Watch? And then from there we go into the monthlies. So the way I like to set up a planner is I like to set up the monthlies all in advance at the same time. And I feel like that allows me, again, to break in the planner. And, I use the monthlies as my future log. I write down, events, birthdays, anniversaries, travel, both for work and personal. I like to record all the things we have coming up in these monthly layouts. And so decorating them ahead of time, I feel like breaks them in a way that makes me less cautious about writing in them, especially when I'm starting a new planner. And so I went ahead and decorated all the months. I wrote in all of the, again, events, birthdays, holidays that I know are coming up in 2024. This is intended to be my personal planner, but I will put work stuff in here that, you know, rises to the level of I need to be aware of when, you know, I'm planning other aspects of life. So for example, I know that there is a conference in March that I'm 90% sure I'm going to go to, and it's good for me to have on my radar as being this weekend in March, so I don't plan other things ahead of time. And so, yeah, that is how I've set up the monthlies. I'll go ahead and flip through them. I used washi tape from different places. Like I think this is MT washi. These monthly stickers are from Virgo and Paper again. These holiday stickers, I believe, are from the Planner Spot, but I will double check. And try to leave information about the shops I mentioned in the description box. Yeah, these are how I've set up the monthlies. I really love breaking in my planner in this way. And then we know we get a couple of extra months for the following year. I will usually use these as a future log. So then, you know, as many of you probably know, the Hobonichi Weeks actually starts in the first week of December, and I'm recording this in mid-December and I haven't quite moved in yet. In terms of how I'm planning to use these weekly layouts, I don't do any setup ahead of time. I will go through and mark some birthdays, but I don't even do that consistently. But the way I'm planning to use this weekly layout is very similar to how I've been using the weekly layout in my current Hobonichi weeks. So I thought I'd just show you my current week. So this is very emblematic of how I use this planner. I will essentially write down big events or things I need to be on my radar here. Like we had cleaners coming over Tuesday morning. I wanted to make sure to note that. I needed to be in DC for 2 days for work stuff. We had a holiday party. And so this is where I'll write down, again, big events, appointments, just day specific things I need to be on my radar. And then I'll occasionally put day specific tasks I need to remember here, but I don't do that consistently. I am a person who's a big fan of daily to-do list. And so when I'm writing something in here as like a to-do, it's mostly a reminder, like I want to do it on that specific day. It's not an exhaustive to-do list for that day, if that makes sense. And then here, I usually have a habit tracker up here and then a running to-do list for the week. This is just, again, a personal to-do list. My work planning is very separate. I do have like work events in here if they are like place specific, like I want to remember I have to be in DC, or, you know, big things that I just want to remember or keep on my radar, but I don't write all of my work meetings in here, for example. So occasionally I'll track orders down here, things I'm waiting on, deliveries I'm waiting on, but this is essentially how I use the weekly layout in the Hobonichi Weeks. I've used it in this way for a long time and it works very well for me. It's very functional, and I'm intending to continue using the Hobonichi Weeks weekly layout in the same way in 2024. Okay, so moving into these back pages, and I will say that the Hobonichi Weeks, Sneaker Weeks definitely does lay flat, but you have to train it to open up a bit. You know, essentially you're just trying to break the spine in, but it will definitely lay flat. I've never had any issues with Hobonichi Weeks, Mega and the Sneaker Weeks laying flat. But this, I believe this layout is meant to be a index in the way it's set up in the Hobonichi Weeks. And I decided this year to cover up those words and use this as a place to capture my goals for next year. So here I'm gonna write again my word of the year, and then below here I'm gonna write my goals. I'm also planning to do some goal planning and tracking in my common planner, but I really like having my goals in my planner and have this as a reference throughout the entire year. And then on this page, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm planning on, I'm thinking right now that I will make a vision board and print it out with my printer or my photo printer. I was also playing with the idea of doing a sticker collage or a washi collage, but I'll figure that out eventually. My perspective on setting up a planner is to get sort of the bare minimum I need to feel like ready to move in. But a lot of the setup will continue to evolve once I start moving into, or I start planning in this. And then here I've decided to set up an index. I'm somebody who used to bullet journal for a long time, but I was never a very consistent indexer. And I thought it would be fun to experiment with indexing again this year, since I do archive this and I think about this, there are things that I want to reference in here after the year is up. I definitely go back to my other Hobonichi weeks. And so I thought this could be a fun experiment and to see if having an index helps me, sift through old journals and planners more efficiently. So then we move into the collections and trackers I've set up in the Hobonichi weeks. So I spent a lot of time thinking about whether I wanted those collections and trackers to be in the Hobonichi weeks or my common planner. And there are at least 3 reasons why I ended up setting all of my collections and trackers up in this planner versus the common planner. So for one, I have the half-year version of the common planner. I really like the slimmer profile. I used to use the Hobonichi Cousin Avec and liked the 6-month version a lot more than the full year. And I found the same was true for me with the B6 common planner, even though it's a bit smaller than an A5. But that said, because I have this 6-month version, there are a bunch of collections and trackers that I prefer to see over a full year. And so that's one reason I set them up in the Hobonichi weeks. Another reason is I anticipate that I would run out of space in the 2024 Common Planner if I'm not careful about how many pages I use per month. I have been using the Common Planner since June, and I moved into the full year planner in June, so I had lots of extra pages, and so I just wasn't concerned about using up too much space, and I can't continue to use as many pages a month as I have been in the 2024 Common Planner if I'm moving in January 1st. And so that is another reason I've set up all my collections and trackers in the Hobonichi weeks. I'm trying to save space in the blank pages to be able to journal 4 to 5 times a week, which is what I've been averaging in 2023 so far. And then the last reason that I set up all of my collections and trackers in the Hobonichi weeks is because I much prefer to have all of my collections and trackers in one place. I don't keep collections and trackers up to date well if they are spread across different planners and books. And so I really wanted to pick either the Common Planner or the Hobonichi weeks, and it felt like the Hobonichi weeks just made a lot more sense. Okay, that background aside, let's go into the collections I've set up. So here I have a list of books that I'm planning to list the books that I read in 2024 and a rating. I track all of this also in my Goodreads, which I'll link down to below. But I'd like to keep track at a high level of where I am in meeting my goal of reading 60 books next year. I set an ambitious goal for myself this past year of reading 50 books in 2023, and I just met that goal, and I have a couple of weeks left, so I'm feeling really confident and excited about upping that goal a bit. And so I tried to think about, if my goal is to read 60 books, and I'm pretty confident I will, how many pages will I need? And so I estimated 3 pages given my handwriting. But that said, if I end up running out of space for whatever reason, or I read more books than 60, I can always set up another tracker or collection later in the Hobonichi weeks. And then here I thought I would just keep a to-be read list. Again, I use Goodreads a lot, and I have a very long to-be read list there, but I like to have a place where I can capture it in my planner if I don't have my phone on me for whatever reason, or I don't want to open my phone and get sucked into, whatever distractions await me on my cell phone. I also like to, at the beginning of the year, think specifically about some books that I want to try to read in 2024 that have been on my mind or on my to-be-read list for a while, or books that I know are coming out in 2024 and I'm excited about. Then we have my did not finish list. So one of my biggest recommendations when people ask me how, for advice on how to read more is getting comfortable with not finishing every book you start. That was a lesson it took me a long time to learn. I'm very much a perfectionist again. I want to feel like I can check something off, especially if I'm halfway through a book. But there are so many amazing books out there waiting to be read. And so really trying to let go of that mindset has been hugely beneficial for me in my reading. And so one way that I've been able to move past that mindset is by having a separate collection for books I didn't finish, because if I don't get to check off a book, on my my reading list, I can at least check it off somewhere and write it down somewhere. So it still gives me that kind of satisfaction of saying I'm finished with a book, even if I did not finish it. And then here I thought it'd be fun to just write down my favorite books of 2024. I'm not giving myself a number necessarily, but the books that I love, when I finish a book I love, I thought it'd be fun to jot down here and just add to that list. So here I'm trying to just write down the podcasts I listened to, the TV shows I watched. Here I have a wish list for myself where I just jot down things that I want as, I want to purchase them. And I like having a place where I can write it down and give myself, a day or two to decide if it's something I really need. But if not, I have it here and I can think about picking it up in the future if it's on sale, for example. But I always love having a wish list in my planner. And then I also have a list for gift ideas for, my son, my husband, other people in our lives. And then here I've set up a spending tracker. My intention is to track my for fun money spending. We track our expenses using other tools that my husband and I both have access to, but I like tracking my personal spending in this way because it makes it, very concrete to me. I'm become much more aware if I'm spending too much on stationery, for example, when I have a tracker like this set up. And then here I set up 2 collections to capture content ideas for YouTube and some writing ideas. I'm intending to start a Substack in 2024. I'm hoping to get it launched right in January, but I thought it would be fun to have a place to capture ideas as they came up. And then here I have what I'm calling a brain dump list. I've set this up in my last few planners and I've really liked having something like this to reference. And so essentially how I use this is if an idea for a project or something I need to do pops into my head that's not time sensitive or even a priority, I will jot it down here and then I come back to this list once a month and see if there's something I want to get done that month. So, for example, I really want to reorganize my office, but it's not strictly necessary and I'm busy and I've had a bunch of other stuff going on recently. And so I'm definitely gonna write down reorganize office here. And I will then come back to it, once a month and figure out when I can do that. But I like having some place where I can capture those types of things that I know I want to get done. I can get them out of my head, put them here. And then my hope is that'll help remind me to eventually get it done. And then next I have set up 2 bucket lists. My idea here, I have a 2024 bucket list, which is, in my mind, a bucket list is just, the fun things I want to get done, like vacations we want to take, trips we want to take, and other fun stuff as a family that we want to do. And so my plan is to, have this as a collection here where I can jot down stuff. And I'll probably spend some time over the holiday as I break in this planner more, jotting down some stuff I know, we want to do in 2024. And then the idea here with this more general family bucket list is that I'll capture just like big picture, short and long-term ideas of stuff that I want us to do as a family or we'd like to do as a family, but they're not time sensitive or time bound in any way. So, you know, take a trip to Puerto Rico is definitely something on our family bucket list. It's probably not in the cards for 2024 because we have a move coming up and some other stuff coming up. But that said, that's the type of thing I would capture here. And then the last couple of trackers I've set up, I have a cycle tracker, which is pretty self-explanatory, and then an adulting log, which I essentially just use to write down when I last did certain things that I feel like I have to do to, you know, be a functioning adult, like get the car registration renewed, go to the dentist, get my annual physical. And so I like to capture that stuff here. And then I usually only need like half a page. So I put a line through here and left this space blank. And I figure I can use it if I have other ideas for collections that pop up over the year or trackers. And then from there, we move into my January setup for the Hobonichi Weeks. This is something new I'm gonna be experimenting with in 2024, but I like the idea of having a place to mark that it's a new month. Like I like marking off months in my planner with tabs like this, and B, to have just like a running to-do list for the month. So again, things that aren't necessarily time sensitive. I don't know what week I want to do them in, but things I know we need to get done in January is what I'm planning to capture here. And then my thinking with this page, I still haven't quite figured it out. You can see I've written like my intentions here in pencil, but my plan is to track some just high level stuff about our finances and budget and expenses here. Like I thought it would be really useful to have some type of high level snapshot of total expenses over January. We track that stuff digitally, but I like seeing things on paper. I'm a paper person. And so I'm not quite sure what the layout will look like, but I figure I'll experiment with it over the year. And if it's not working, I could always use this for something else. And so then we get into just the rest of the grid pages in the Hobonichi Weeks Mega. And so I essentially use this like a bullet journal. I sometimes have dailies in here. I often have a long weekend running to-do list. I have other lists, other collections or trackers as, you know, they pop in my mind and I want to set them up. I'll just set them up. Doesn't matter if, you know, they're not with the rest of the collections and trackers. Notes, if I'm, you know, at a work thing, sometimes I'll take notes in my Hobonichi Weeks or, you know, I don't know, like whatever I need to write down, I will usually write down in here. I've used the Hobonichi Weeks in a very similar way for a couple of years now, and I've never run out of pages. And so I'm just not that concerned about it, especially with the Mega Weeks. And then when we get in the back, there's a couple of additional pages or I've set up. So I swatched all of my Tombow brush pens in the back here. This is very much inspired by Claire from Online. I thought this would be fun to have on the go because, again, this is the planner I always have with me. And, you know, if I'm at an art store or a stationery store and I see a Tombow brush pen that I want, like, I feel like I constantly buy duplicates of the same colors because I am I'm a creature of habit. I love purple. I have probably 3 of the 623 Tombow brush pens. And so I thought this would be really valuable to have on me. And I just like having this to see as a reference point if I'm thinking about picking up some new brush pens. And then here I did some pen tests, which is pens I keep in my pen cases that I usually have with me or I carry around the house. I like, I love doing pen test pages also just to, again, break in a planner and start using it. And then I'm figuring I'll use these pages to keep doing pen tests as I get new pens or I get new fountain pens, new fountain pen inks. And then I have just 2 more things set up here in the back because The Hobonichi Weeks comes with some of these layouts. You have this favorites layout, and I'm planning to track my favorite inks here. I thought I'll do swatches of the favorite inks I pick up in 2024. In previous planners, I have largely set up the movies watched tracker like earlier alongside the TV shows I've watched, that collection. But I decided to set it up here because my husband and I are definitely movie people. We watch movies most of all, more than TV shows. And so my movies, tracking the movies I've watched is usually one of the longer trackers, or the trackers that needs the most space in my planner. And so I thought it would be fun to use this layout for that this year, especially since I feel like right now we're hovering around 75 movies watched in 2023. And so this actually feels like it'll be filled up in 2024, which will be fun to look back on. And then the last tracker I've set up here is this checkoff sheet. This came in the last year's Hobonichi Weeks, and I tried to use it for a while and fell off with it, in large part because it just has the number of days, and I feel like once I got to here, when I fell off with the tracking, it took me a while to figure out what is day 189. But I'm going to try again this year, and my plan is to track credit card spending, trying to pay down some credit cards, and so I want to make sure I'm not putting anything new on those cards. And so just going to check off or color in days where we don't touch those credit cards. So yeah, that's the last bit of what I've set up here in the Hobonichi Weeks Mega. I have this new pencil board I picked up from Hobonichi Weeks this year. And that's my setup. I'm planning to move into this at some point, probably after Christmas, since I have a bunch of Christmas to-do list in my current 2023 weeks. But I'm really excited about this setup and to have the Hobonichi Weeks in my lineup as my functional planner first and foremost. So stay tuned for more planner setup videos in the near future. Thanks for hanging out with me for so long, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.